All right, let's see if we can make this work. Try to go live here. Hey, everybody. Chuck Holton here. How's it going? I am live from yet another hotel room. This time I'm in Tel Aviv, and I would be standing on the balcony and showing you how nice that is, but the sun is coming right in the balcony, and I basically would be staring into the sun the whole time. So I'm just going to have to sit here on the bed and do this. Now, Diane Britson updates on the Aramaic Christians. Okay, I'm going to get to that. I talked to one of my Maronite Christian friends up in Jish today, a woman named Naveen, and I got some great information for you for the podcast today. But let's just start here. There is a major escalation happening in Syria. As a matter of fact, Israel, it appears, is trying to decapitate the new government of Syria. And so they are hitting the new Syrian regime very hard today to try to stop them from going after the Druze. Now, we talked about that on yesterday's live. We talked about the Druze fighting with the Bedouins who are affiliated with the Islamic State. The government forces came in to support the Bedouin side, and the Israelis struck their vehicles and tanks and that sort of thing to get them back, to send them back the way they came from and keep them away from the Druze. Overnight, there were being messages put out from I don't know if it was government officials or just people in that militia that were fighting the Druze, but the messages were stop filming the massacres on your phones, continue to massacre people, shave their beards, humiliate them, rape their women, whatever you want to do, just don't film it. And so there has been very heavy fighting throughout Suwayda government. There have been a lot of civilians killed, and apparently, what I'm being told is the forces that are being supported by the government. So we're talking about the Bedouins specifically, who are again aligned with the Islamic State, are going basically house to house and just murdering everybody, just trying to kill as many people as they can. The Israelis have taken a very strong line against that. We got word this morning here that the United States had asked Israel to stop the airstrikes on the government of Syria, because, as you know, the U.S. has high hopes for al-Shar, and is, he met with the president, and we're pulling troops out of the region, and they're essentially pressuring all of the disparate groups around Syria, like the Kurds and the Christians and Yazidis, and the Druze, to submit themselves to the new regime. Well, it appears that is not happening. I can promise you that the Kurds are watching all these events very, very closely, and are, not likely to submit themselves to al-Shara after this. The Druze uh, had a reprieve last night when the IDF pushed back the government forces, decimated them. I didn't have a chance to load up a bunch of videos. I've got a ton of videos I wanted to show you, but I was driving. I got here in Tel Aviv to pick up Connie, who's coming to visit for a little while, and so she's coming into the airport in about an hour or so. And I've got a bunch of hits for Newsmax tonight as well. So it's a busy night for me. And I just didn't have a chance to load up everything. But there are lots of videos coming out of the uh, damage that's being done to the al-Shara government. Tanks being blown up, trucks being blown up. And those guys figured out pretty quickly yesterday that if they stay in Sweida, they're going to get waxed. So it's they pulled out, but the messages that they were putting out on their own channels to their own guys were not, okay, come back to Damascus and let's, leave these Druze alone. It was park your vehicles undercover and then walk back into Sweida in small groups and continue the killing. That's what I'm being told was the message that was put out to the guys that are in that area. So that doesn't bode well for this conflict. As I said, the defense minister in Israel put out a very strongly worded message that they will support the Druze and they will protect the Druze. And so it turns out Israel, even if the United States asked Israel to cool it, they're not. They're not cooling it. Now, it is possible that the United States just said that they asked Israel to knock it off, and that's more of this sort of political theater that we've seen throughout the recent part of this conflict. But either way, whether the United States asked them to stop or not, they're not stopping. Now, I want to go through and just read you some of the notes that I'm getting these are from sources inside Syria that are vetted. Okay. So what I'm telling you, whatever else you're hearing on the news, it could be hearsay or whatever, but what I'm telling you is coming straight from a very trusted intelligence source in Syria that's collecting up all this information and putting it together and sending it to me. Okay. So I can't name the source, but it is good information. All right. First of all, this is a major escalation. Israel struck over 160 targets inside Syria, across Syria, including the General Staff Building and the Ministry of Defense in Damascus. Now, there are rumors that they also struck the presidential palace. The IDF is saying we didn't strike the presidential palace, we struck the building right next door to it, right in front of it, I guess. But again, there's still a lot of rumors going around that the presidential palace itself was struck. We are told that, well, I'll get to that. They struck 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas around Damascus, including the home of one of the governors of Daraa. They in Quneitra, which I showed you when I was there the other day. Quneitra is that ghost town that's right across the border from Israel that you can see from the Golan Heights. And there are apparently Israeli tanks moving into Syria now across the border. So that's how serious this is. We've got Israeli tanks moving into Syria now, pushing into this area. This is very serious. They struck a military vehicle and a Syrian army artillery unit in the south. Part of the reason for that is because, in addition to trying to surge troops into Suwayda, they also have been firing Grad missiles. These are multiple launch rocket systems that can really do a lot of damage. They've been apparently firing artillery and sending drones into the area to drop stuff on people. Okay. Thank you, Stealth Drone Tech. Appreciate that. So the Israelis are very methodically, very intentionally striking especially the heavy weapons that Syria has. The way Israel probably sees this is they get a 2-for-1 deal with this. Every tank, ground missile system, artillery piece, whatever that they blow up inside Syria is one less tank, rocket system, or artillery system that can be used against them at some point in the future. They would like nothing more than to make sure that the al-Shar government has no military whatsoever. That's the best way for them to ensure. Oh, is Mansour? Ah, thank you, Mansour. I was just listening to your last video a few minutes ago on my way here, and I would love to get you on the show, and we'll do an interview. So send me an email, info@holtonnews.com, and I'll get in touch with you, and we will we'll get on an interview. I might be able to put you into the Christian Broadcasting Network update we do every morning, and perhaps get you on Newsmax in front of 125 million people in the United States. So thank you for being here, Mansour. Appreciate that. Now, like I say, the Israelis want, of course, they would be very happy for whatever government is governing Syria to join the Abraham Accords and work with the Israelis and all that. But even better would be for that government to have no choice, because it has been decimated. So that, like I say, every strike they do on Syrian targets at this point is kind of a twofer for them. The Israelis are taking this very seriously. I mean, to be bombing the Ministry of Defense, government buildings, perhaps even the presidential palace in Damascus. They just met with al-Shar in Azerbaijan last week. So what did they talk about? Like, hey, you better, hey, we want to be friends. Just kidding. We're going to bomb your palace. No, I think that the Israelis have a red line. They obviously have very good intelligence. The Israelis wrote the book on the kind of intel that they're collecting here. Thank you, PC. Very kind of you. As far as human intelligence, signals intelligence coming out of Syria. And as Mansour was actually mentioning on his video, when things are crazy, this is the time for the Mossad to get in there and place agents and buy information and collect intelligence, because it's chaotic and there's very little to stop them at this point. So that's exactly what Israel is doing. Israel, if let me just say this: if Israel is striking to try to take out the al-Shar government, that is a whole new level for this war. They are doing to Syria right now what they did to Iran a couple of weeks ago, and if that is the case, then it must be that the Israelis have some information about the al-Shar government that makes the Israelis say that government is incompatible with our values, and we're going to take them down and let somebody else take charge for the next go around. Then basically Israel is doing what I've been saying that they needed to do, and that the United States needs to do for a long time. And that is, we're not going to try to nation build. We're not going to try to come in and make you into a Jeffersonian democracy. We're going to come in and reboot your country. And we'll take out your government, we'll kill your leaders, and then we'll leave. And then you can remake your government any way you like. We're not going to try to tell you how to do it. If you want to be a radical government, well, that's fine. But if that's the case, then that means we're going to have to come back and reboot your government for you again at some point in the future. So you can do whatever you want with it as long as it's not a threat to us. That should be America's policy, and it should be Israel's policy. And Israel is doing a whole lot better at that than the U.S. is at this point. Now, there are many documented casualties among the high-ranking commanders in Syria right now, as of an hour ago, including Brigadier General Muammar Ibrahim, the commander of the artillery company, Brigade 40. He was sent to his, as Mansour was saying, 72 demon goats to be, you don't get, these guys think they're going to go get 72 virgins. They're not going to get 72 virgins. They're going to be the virgin, and they're going to get 72 demon goats in Hades. Khaled Musa Abd al-Ghani al-Zubi, they call him Abu Walid, the governor of the Basra al-Sham area, was killed. Their hits were reported in the Al-Matar neighborhood in Daraa on the main highways. There's major escalation inside Suwayda, heavy fighting happening right now. Intense clashes continue in the city of Suwayda between the new state forces, that's the GSS, and the Syrian army, and the members of the Jilani faction. So that's interesting. This was translated from Arabic, so maybe the translation is not perfect. There are many civilian bodies seen in the streets right now. Dozens have been killed and wounded on both sides. Reports of RPGs, snipers, and occupation of civilian homes. As Mansour was reporting, Mansour is a Druze in Israel, but he's got a lot of contacts inside Syria. And what he was reporting is that no, I didn't talk to you, Siri. Stop it. What he's reporting is that they're putting out on their own WhatsApp groups, use human shields. Keep Israel from striking you. Go into their homes and take them as human shields, because the Israelis are a moral and just army and are not going to just randomly drop bombs on people like the old Syrian army under Bashar al-Assad would have, or the Russians would have, for sure. There have been protests seen. Thank you, USA United. Thank you. I appreciate that. There are civilian protests that are being seen demanding an end to the killing, including in the town of Jaramana. Medical sources report dozens of injuries, including journalists like a guy named Nadim Nabulsi. There's a Damascus suburb of Jaramana. Let's go look that up. Let's go to the map here. And I just got to figure out where I put the map now. Nope, not that one. Oh, by the way, no, not that one. There we go. There's the map. Real quick, we'll look up Jaramana and take a look at where that is. Okay, that's surrounded in the red line here, just kind of southeast of the center of Damascus. And there are strikes happening there and apparently protests happening there. Druze militias attacked Jilani fighters in Jaramana. Now let's look where Sweida is. We'll look at directions to get from Jaramana to Sweida. It's an hour and 25 minutes from Jaramana to Sweida, but that's the main road that the Jilani forces probably would have traveled to get to Sweida. And so they've been fighting along that road. They've got direct clashes that have broken out between Druze residents and residents of Diriyah, including knife fights. That's interesting. Diriyah is just here, over in this area. Heavy gunfire reported from Druze militias in Jaramana. The Syrian flag was removed from several buildings, and in the reports, it was being referred to as the flag of terror. The protests in Jaramana are against both Jilani's forces and Israeli involvement. So there's competing protests happening in Jaramana. That's interesting. This suburb up here. Now, involvement of Druze from Israel and abroad. Druze from the Golan Heights, where I was, actually, I just showed you that video, I think. Nope, there. So those white buildings behind me are actually on the Syria side of the border. So again, just about half. So that was from the area where they crossed up in the Golan Heights. And apparently hundreds and perhaps thousands, the videos coming out make it look like at least 1,000 Druze have broken through the border fence from Israel and tramped into Syria to go to the aid of their brethren in this Sweida. Now, here's the problem with that. There's where this is happening, crossing over right in here. Oh, wait, I got to go take you back to the map. You're not looking at the map. Sorry. My bad. Okay, there's the map. All right. So here's the Israeli border where we were. That's where that video was shot the other day, right by this winery. And they're crossing over right in here somewhere and meaning to go all the way down here to Sweida. The problem is in between there is territory that's held by the Bedouin who are aligned with the Islamic State. And so there have been clashes apparently between the Druze coming out of Israel, breaking through the border fence, and the Islamic State aligned people that are in this area right in here. That's a problem. It's a problem for the IDF, and the IDF has been trying to herd all these angry Druze back into Israel, and they don't want to go. Look, the Druze are some of the most loyal people that you will ever hope to meet. And that being the case, these Druze from Majd al-Shams and places over here in Israel, they're not just going to stand by and watch their brothers in Syria get massacred. So they want to go to their defense. The Israelis are saying, hey, let us take care of it. Let our military deal with it. And the Druze are like, yeah, no, we're going. So there are clashes reported with ISIS elements that are trying to block them as they go in. That dramatically complicates things for the IDF because now you've got all these people, they're not in uniform, they probably are carrying weapons, and they're probably close to Israeli positions because the Israelis have taken this area in between here. This area, it now belongs to the Israelis. So these guys crossing through here in civilian clothes with weapons, how are the Israeli military? How are they supposed to know whether or not these guys are good guys or bad guys? And again, this is dramatically complicating the problem. Okay, let's take a break for a second, folks. We got 1,400 people watching, and I just want to say thank you to our sponsor today. We have a new sponsor that you guys we haven't ever mentioned before, so this is very interesting. Look, I like to cook if danger is involved, and the hardest part about cooking on the grill, especially, or even cooking in the kitchen, especially cooking meat, steaks, chicken, fish, is being stuck next to the grill for the whole party while everybody else is out visiting with each other, and you're just kind of stuck there because you got to keep an eye on the steaks. So you've heard of like a meat thermometer, right? Well, Chef IQ does one even better than that. So Chef IQ has a, wait, I got to show you what it is here. There it is. This is called the IQ Sense. Let me get me out of the way. And the IQ Sense here is a meat thermometer that it has Bluetooth and it connects to your phone. And that's pretty awesome. So this is way beyond your typical meat thermometer. It's completely wireless. You stick it in whatever you're cooking and open the app, tell it what you're making, steak, chicken, fish, whatever, and how you want it done. Do you want it medium rare, well done, whatever? From there, the Chef IQ does all the work. And, or I'm sorry, the IQ Sense. It monitors the internal temperature and predicts exactly when your food will be ready. And so you don't have to stand over a grill or go open the oven 5 times just to check. Now you're free. Go hang with your guests. Flip the game back on. Fold that load of laundry, whatever. Chef IQ Sense will ping your phone when it's ready. And that means your meat is perfectly cooked every time. This thing's the smartest, simplest way to take the stress out of grilling or cooking. And right now they're running a flash sale. You can get 15% off when you go to chefiq.com and use the promo code Chuck. So again, chefiq.com. This is the website right here. You're looking at it. Let's see here. Let me go see the front page. I got too many windows open on my computer. Let me go back to the front page here. They got lots of other products as well. So go to chefiq.com, and anything you buy, use the code Chuck, and you can get 15% off. All right. So time to grill like a pro. This is the way you do it, right over here. All right. Let's get back to the video. Thank you for our sponsors. Now, the Israelis are reporting that Israel warned the Syrian government to withdraw their forces from the south by 7 p.m. tonight, or Israel would intervene on the ground. Do you hear what I'm saying? What we're about to see, if the Syrian government forces don't pull out of the area, is we're about to see ground fighting between the IDF and the Syrian government forces. That would be, as far as I understand, pretty much a first. And that'd be pretty bad. Now, the Syrian Presidential Council condemned the violations and promised a full investigation and follow-up. The U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, expressed concern about the violence in Syria and called for a ceasefire already. The Syrian branch of the Human Rights Organization reported at least 169 dead, including women, children, and medical personnel. Sheikh Yosef Jerboa, the spiritual leader of the Druze, expressed support for the state and warned against foreign interference from Israel. So that's complicating things even more. The Alawite High Islamic Council issued a strong condemnation of the crimes that the state is doing against the people in Suwayda, accusing the Ministry of Defense of supporting criminals and terrorist militias. Now, I want to flip over to something else that I saw right before I went live here, and that was a update, a message from the head of the Druze community, not the spiritual leader, but I guess this guy might be an elected leader. His name is Sheikh Moafak Tarif. I'm sure I massacred that. He says, in light of the ongoing massacre in Druze Mountain in Syria, the head of the Druze community in Israel conveyed a message to the prime minister. Oh, okay, so this guy's the head of the Druze community in Israel, not in Syria. That's what it is. Conveyed a message to the prime minister and the minister of defense. Choose partnership with the Druze community, or with ISIS. We must strike the Syrian regime and force it to withdraw from Sweida, South Syria. This is a war of existence for the Druze community. So that's something. This is the leader of the Druze in Israel saying to the Israeli government, if you don't back us up, you're going to have a problem. There's going to be a problem. So that may be something that's influencing the Israelis' decision to push troops into the area and actually have the potential of going head-to-head in armed ground combat with the Syrian government forces. That is pretty serious. The people want to overthrow the regime outside southern Syria. including parts of Damascus. Druze are taking to the streets and saying the people want to overthrow the regime. Al-Jilani, they're saying, you're not one of us. Take your dogs and leave us. Again, these are other towns in the vicinity of Damascus. The Druze are ruled to one extent or another by Sunnis, and after battles they had in May, in which the towns fell under Sunni control, Prime Minister Netanyahu put out a statement and said, we are working to save our Druze brothers and to eliminate the regime's gangs. Israel Katz, the defense minister, said, the signals in Damascus have ended. Now, painful blows will come. The IDF will continue to operate forcefully in Suwayda to destroy the forces that attack the Druze until their full withdrawal. Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, who will likely run in the next election with his new party in Israel, said Israel must act immediately to stop the massacre of the Druze. So he's on board with what the Israelis are doing. Videos show mass Israeli Druze young men crossing into Syria, being picked up by vehicles to take them onward to Sweida. Assessments range from hundreds to over 1,000. The IDF forces on the border are being reinforced by border police and Yamam forces to prevent further crossings, including crossing into Syria, to control the situation and bring Israeli citizens back. Border crossings have included Syrian Druze coming into Israel to meet with family and gather supplies. So when they broke the fence down, Druze started crossing both directions. This is a catastrophe. I mean, Israel is like losing control of their border up there, and that's not good at all. So it's no wonder the IDF is like, get some troops in there. Okay, let's show them that we're serious. We can't have this. They can't just have. One of the things that was being called for was a humanitarian corridor from Suwayda into Israel and back. So the IDF would have to push further into Syria, open up and protect a humanitarian corridor, and then allow the Druze to cross back and forth. If that happens, you can bet that a large majority of the Druze who are in Syria are going to very quickly decide to come live in Israel, and Israel's going to have an immigration problem on its hands. So they may need to get Oscar Blue Ramirez out there to help those guys figure out what to do. The IDF put out a statement and said the IDF is committed to the deep alliance with our Druze brothers and accordingly attacks targets across Syria to protect them in the al-Shar area, the Druze mountain, and wherever required. The IDF attacked the Syrian presidential palace in Damascus and destroyed the general staff building. Following the attack above, reports indicate that the regime leader, Abu Muhammad al-Jilani, who declared himself president of Syria, fled the palace in Damascus, but there's no confirmation of that. Despite the attack in Damascus, the jihadists of the Syrian leader al-Jilani continue to move south to Sweida to continue their plans for ethnic cleansing. From the IDF, dozens of suspects attempted to infiltrate Israel from Syrian territory. How does the IDF know if these guys are just Druze coming to visit their families or they're ISIS militants coming to murder Israelis? This is really, really serious for Israel right now. I keep saying that, but I can't stress that enough. This is super serious for them. Very bad. Very, very bad. Okay. Now, the IDF is diverting some of their forces to the north because it is so serious. This is a big deal, folks. Several announcements of a ceasefire have passed. Here's the latest. Sheikh Yosef Jerboua, spiritual leader of the Druze community in Syria, declared that following the severe events in Sweida, contacts were held with the Syrian regime and an agreement was reached. According to him, a complete cessation of all military actions in the city by all parties was agreed upon, as well as the full integration of Sweida within the Syrian state. So we're getting conflicting reports out of here. This is very, again, par for the course. When you have something like this, there's going to be fog of war, right? And this is what we're seeing. The Syrian Interior Ministry is saying a ceasefire has been reached in the city of Suwayda. Checkpoints have been deployed in preparation for full regime control. Sweida will become part of the state's arrangements. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says, again, concerned about the fighting in Syria, very concerned about the attacks. We want it to stop. This has been misrepresented in the mainstream media as Israel was asked to stop. This is not the case. The U.S. government has a very bad habit when they approach every conflict of saying, our approach to this conflict is we want the killing to stop. That's it. They've done that in Ukraine. They've done that in Israel in the past. And now they're doing it in Syria. The American position is we want the killing to stop. Point, period, end of story. Well, there's a problem with that strategy. Just pushing for the killing to stop, very often the easiest way to get the killing to stop is to go after the aggrieved party, the ones who are being attacked, and talk them into giving up. That's a problem. We saw President Trump several months ago doing that with Ukraine, telling the Ukrainians, look, if you just stop fighting, then the killing can stop. Like, that is not a just outcome to the war. So it's an amoral position to take. Like, we're not going to take sides in this. We just want the killing to stop. That is horrible. That's tantamount to saying we hope the bad guys win so that the killing can stop. I mean, it's like, that's terrible. We need to get a backbone in America, and we need to stand up and say, no, that's right and that's wrong, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is and do something about it. Pamela Trost asks, will other Muslim nations like Saudi Arabia do the same? How will this affect the Abraham Accords? Well, there was talk of the new Syrian government joining the Abraham Accords, but if they're striking the presidential palace in Syria, those plans might have been put on hold today. Minister of National Security Ben-Gvir put out a statement, the shocking images from Syria prove one thing. Once a jihadist, always a jihadist. Whoever murders, cuts off mustaches, because there's a lot of videos coming out of them humiliating these spiritual leaders of the Druze by cutting off their beards. That's straight up Old Testament stuff right there. That's the kind of thing they did in the Old Testament. Next thing you know, they're going to be forcing them all to get circumcised or something. Whoever murders, cuts mustaches, humiliates, rapes, should not conduct negotiations with him. And the only thing that should be done with Jelani is to eliminate him. I love the Druze citizens of the state of Israel. Send them a warm hug and say, we need to eliminate the head of the snake. That is Ben-Gvir literally calling for Israel to kill al-Jelani. That's pretty strong stuff right there. And I think what this shows us is just how tight or how important the Druze community is to the current administration in Israel. Very, very important to them to keep the Druze happy, because the Druze vote. They're very loyal to Israel, but if you make them angry, they're going to be your enemy. You don't want that many, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of Druze in Israel. You don't want them all of a sudden turning against the state of Israel. That would be very, very bad for Israel. So Israel is saying, look, if we have to choose between what the Druze in our own country want us to do and what the Americans want us to do, we got to go with what the Druze say, because the Americans don't actually vote in Israel. And if you haven't noticed, the current government in Israel is hanging by a thread. The ultra-Orthodox Jews pulled out of the ruling coalition at the Knesset yesterday, and so that leaves Benjamin Netanyahu with a one-vote majority, 61 votes in the Knesset out of 120. And that's very close to his government actually collapsing, and then they have to try to come up with a new government. That may actually happen. We may see that happen at some point. I'm guessing that part of the reason we're seeing this very enthusiastic response to defending a minority group in another country is because that's what a important part of their coalition wants, the Druze want here in Israel. The Druze community in Israel put out an official statement. We call on all members of the community to prepare by all means necessary to cross the border in order to assist the brothers being massacred in Syria. So there, the leadership of the Israeli Druze community is saying, yeah, I don't care what the IDF says. All of the men of the Druze community in Israel need to be crossing the border right now into Syria to go fight for our brothers over there. That is a big problem for the Israeli government. And the Israeli government, one of the ways they're trying to maybe, sort of talk those guys into changing their minds, stay where you are in Israel, is let us handle it. The IDF has the tanks, we've got the soldiers, we will send troops in there and we will protect the Druze. And so this is, there you go. Interesting. There were 6 hikers that were reported missing up near Mount Meron, which is near uh, uh, Jish, the Maronite Christian community that I like to visit. There were 6 people missing up on that mountain in the woods, and it's not that a group of 6 hikers just now went missing. Rather, over the past 6 years, 6 individuals went missing at different times. Oh, okay. The police have new information about their possible fate, and that set off the intense search on Mount Meron today. So there was, I guess, some miscommunication. People thought it was currently missing hikers. Sounds like they might have found some hikers that have gone missing over the years. That's very interesting. In light of the Likud's rush under Prime Minister Netanyahu toward a surrender deal with Hamas and ignoring the vehement opposition of Otzma Yehudit, a coalition member, the Otzma Yehudit faction has decided today, according to its ideological stance, to support the bill to stop the supply of humanitarian aid to the enemy. Okay, that's interesting, and that's one thing that the new current reality in the Knesset with the ultra-Orthodox party pulling out gives a lot more power to the right-wing part of Netanyahu's coalition. And that means that Netanyahu just got a lot more pressure to continue the fight in Gaza and not come to a ceasefire agreement. So that what that means for our purposes is that a ceasefire agreement in Gaza just got less likely because these ultra-Orthodox Jews pulled out of the coalition. The reason they pulled out, and some of my Jewish viewers can send me a message and set me straight on this, but as I was watching some of the interviews today with some of the ultra-Orthodox about this, this whole pulling out of the Knesset coalition, they were one young guy said, "I think this is the right thing for us to do. The Israeli government just wanted to draft us all into the army and get us all killed, and so I'm very happy about this. They did the right thing." And then he ended by saying something really strange to me. He said, "And I hope the Israeli, I hope Israel collapses." He actually said that. I hope Israel collapses. Now, that made me go like, wait, what? What did he just say? This is a Jew in Israel saying, I hope Israel collapses. Well, somewhere in my memory banks, there's something that I remember hearing at one point, that some of these very extreme ultra-Orthodox Jews don't even recognize the state of Israel as their government. They say our government is from Hashem, and that's all. And we don't recognize the state of Israel as governing us, and we would be very happy for the government of Israel to literally go away. Obviously, that would not be a great thing if that were to happen, because then the Israeli people would be torn apart by their enemies. But I think what they're saying is that they want God as their leader and nobody else, which is a nice thought. In reality, in practice, that's a little bit more difficult. So, especially when you live in a country that is a Jewish state, but it's not only Jews. So, how are you going to have the God of the Jews be the leader of your country and be the leader of the 20% of people in your country who are Arabs and some other good sized percentage of people who are um, just not Jewish? Maybe they're culturally Jewish or ethnically Jewish, but they're not religious Jews. What are you going to do with those people? That's a problem. And this is one of those things when you have a group of people that comes down super hard on something like that. I just see that as kind of pie in the sky. It's Pollyannic. It's not realistic, and it's likely not going to happen. Are the Jews saying that these ultra-Orthodox guys saying they want to drive out all the rest of the people in Israel who are not ultra-Orthodox Jews? So if you don't agree to walk around dressed like you're from 1850 Russia, you have to leave our country? Is that what they mean? Now, maybe not. Shani Stark says that's a very minority position, speaking as a religious Jew residing in Jerusalem. Okay, so it does exist. That position does exist. I didn't just dream that. Okay, thank you very much. I know that it's a very small faction of the Jews in Israel that believes that way, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, that anybody that believes that way is just being Pollyannic, because it's just not realistic to do that, right? Now, I wanted to get to, oh gosh, I'm running out of time. I wanted to get to, there have been reports that there's a Christian village called Taybeh that's in Samaria or Judea. And let's see if I have let's go back to the map here for a second, and we'll look up where that is. Wrong. Okay. Is that the right one? Yeah. Okay, so that's the right one right there. So there's Jerusalem down here. You go north from Jerusalem for about an hour up in here. This is the Binyamin Council, I believe, that controls this area up here. You have Taybeh. Now, Taybeh is apparently a Christian village, ancient village, and you see these pictures here of like old church and things like that. Well, apparently there's been some clashes up there between Jewish, they call them settlers. I don't like to use that term, because those Jews that live in Judea and Samaria are not illegal settlers. They are there legally, and they have every right to be in Judea and Samaria. But that the media is calling them illegal settlers in there, and they are just, to hear the mainstream media report it, randomly going around and beating up Christians, destroying some of their buildings, setting things on fire. Let me just say, I have not been able to track down all of the information about what the real story is there, but let me just tell you, to put your mind at ease, that it's not what it sounds. There is some unrest up there. Most of it, I'm told, has more to do with so violence between various families in the area that may have something to do with some form of criminality that is taking place up there. And it's not a bunch of angry Jews just going in and saying, we got to destroy this Christian village, and then go destroy it. Now, because it is being put out that way, the um, Orthodox Bishop of Jerusalem, Orthodox, what is he called? I forget. Shoot. Anyway, I think his name is Theophilus or something like that, went up there with an entourage and went to Taybeh and called for an investigation into what happened, and called on the Israeli government to, not just sweep it under the rug, but to actually do an investigation and prosecute anybody that needs to be prosecuted in whatever happened up there. So we'll see if they actually do that or not. But there's also there's another story that's floating around that came out of Hebron, or no, I'm sorry, Judea, Ramallah. It came out of Ramallah, where there was a Palestinian-American, so a guy that is a Palestinian guy who has American citizenship, who was beaten to death in a confrontation with Jewish people in that region. That apparently, the real story is that the Palestinians were confronting these Jews that are there, and it got heated, and then it got violent, and some of the Jews actually, there was a scuffle, and this kid got hit over the head or fell and hit his head, and was not able to get to the hospital in time and was pronounced dead. Ambassador Huckabee has called for an investigation into that situation, but so far, as far as I can tell, no Jews have been arrested or anything like that. There was also another kid that was with this guy from Maryland, a Palestinian kid, who was shot in the chest in that altercation. But it was not, there's just some Palestinians and they're here, just having a cookout or a sing along. And all of a sudden, these bad, evil Jews came running in and just started shooting them or beating them up for no reason. That's almost never the case. If you hear about violence between Israelis living in Judea and Samaria and Arabs living in Judea and Samaria, it is virtually always because the Arabs were throwing rocks, were shooting, were threatening, menacing, burning, running over, just all the different ways you can commit shenanigans against those Jews. And the Jews, at some point, there's not enough police to handle that. There's not enough IDF in the area to handle that. And the Jews up there just start saying, we're going to take it into our own hands and take care of this problem. So with a little bit of vigilante justice, which is never good. And that's one more thing that the Israelis need to get a handle on here. So a lot happening. We may try to get up to the Syrian border tomorrow if this is still a hot story. As it stands, I've got a couple of live hits coming up on Newsmax, so I'm going to have to go. But thank you very much for watching. Please go visit our sponsor, chefiq.com, and use code Chuck, and you'll get 15% off your order over there. I'm sure there were some questions here that I missed, but if I get a chance, I'll come back up live later and we'll go through all the questions here. So please hit that like button, folks. It does make a big difference. I know you need to be reminded, and go over to, and there's a deal with Ground News there that's up pinned on the chat. Ground News is not a sponsor. I just like them, and I am a paying subscriber to Ground News. A lot of people ask where they can, what's a good source to go to for news. Ground News has a really good app that sort of kind of categorizes things very well. So I recommend that, and we have an affiliate link over there as well. But again, please hit the like button on your way out. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and we'll see you again next time. God bless you. Take